Everybody, welcome to V Radio. I'm doing another stream today. I wanted to go ahead and talk about this issue. The funny thing is that what led to me going ahead and wanting to do this was actually some of the terrible takes about it. So I'm going to give people a few moments here to join us. To get people in here. But thank you guys for coming and joining me today. We're going to be discussing the recent stabbing at the gender studies class in Canada, Waterloo, Canada. So there have been some ridiculous takes about this topic as the left kind of scrambles to figure out how they can make sure to blame this on anybody who disagrees with them. We're going to be talking about that as well. As I am waiting for people to file in here, what I will probably do is play the video that I just did recently about this whole thing that's going on at Pride, because I think it's actually related. So I'm going to throw this on while we're waiting for people to file in. And then the reason I'm doing this is that it's relevant to what I'm going to be saying in this stream. Hey, Balloon Knots, good to see you, man. Okay, looks like you caught me live today. So let me go ahead and get this video up. And in the meantime, I'll still be in the chat. I just want to give people an opportunity to show up because I just kind of literally just made this stream just now and then circulated it on social media. So, but you're listening to V Radio. Make sure you go to hy.page/V Radio where you can check out lots of different places to watch my show. Because again, at this point, I'm kind of moving to like a lot of the streams I'm doing are basically like Neo Unrealist streams, and Neo Unrealist got kicked off of YouTube. So I know my days are probably numbered, especially since they're looking at another YouTube ad apocalypse coming up here pretty soon. So I'm going to play, like I said, this video that I just did. It's not very long, and that'll give time for people to show up. So is there actually somebody from Canada here? That's interesting. Cool. All right, folks. So let me go ahead and pull this up. All right, so again, this is the video that I just did on this topic, and I feel it's highly ironic because this is one of those called it situations, and I'll let you be the judge. It's only about 6 minutes long, and then after it's finished, then I'll get into the new stuff that we're going to be discussing today. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. Looking for a group? LFG? You're forming a group? What, are we going to go do a raid or something in World of Warcraft? Looking for a group? And it's not actually my birthday, by the way. My birthday's in February, so I don't know what's about that, but so okay. So I'm going to play this video again that I had done already, just to give people some time to get in here, and also to give some backdrop on what this stream is going to be about. So it's time to talk about what's going on at Pride. Some time ago, Crowdsourced Politics warned me that I should not be telling everybody about the pedophiles that are using the LGBTQ activism as a means to get their hands on children. He stated that this would lead to more deaths. This was in the wake of the shooting that took place not long ago. And I've just got to say, if pointing out that there are pedophiles among the LGBTQ community is dangerous and might lead to more shooting deaths, then what the fuck is this? Like, this is just sheer brain dead nonsense. Like, this is gonna get people hurt. Like, and I say this as somebody, again, who has friends who are queer, who are trans, who are gay. This is sheer stupidity. Like, okay, so people are now saying, well, you know they were just joking or they're just trolling, right? There is nothing funny at all about insinuating that you are coming for someone's children. This isn't funny. It isn't cute. It's not smart. It's absolutely moronic. It's right up there with whoever thought this bullshit was a good idea.
We're coming for them. We're coming for your children. And of course, apparently, some of the people that were in that choir singing that alongside those activists happened to be pedophiles. I'm still looking into this in depth, but the only articles I've ever found that suggest that they're debunking it just say, well, these people have common names or whatever. But basically, there was a list of the people in the choir that was scrubbed off of their website that had to be found on the Wayback Machine, and some of them appear to be convicted pedophiles. And I've talked about this issue already because, as I revealed in this video, there are several pedophiles who ended up getting convicted after making the same arguments that supposedly this is all a moral panic and that nobody's coming for your children to do them any harm, including literally people making the exact same arguments while they were simultaneously raping children. I also did a video uncovering that an award-winning author who also engages in education to help other people educate children just happened to write an article on one of her blogs stating that we should normalize sex between adults and children. I'm also sick to death of the whataboutism of jumping straight to the church, whether it's the Baptist church or the Catholic church. And yes, abuse is going on in both of those situations, but it's going on more in schools. And now we're trying to create a situation where teachers are enabled to speak to kids about these topics, show them graphic pictures and such about these topics. And both of those things are on the list of grooming. Like, that's just like things you're shown immediately. Hey, if there's somebody talking to kids about this, even under the guise of education, is what the American Bar Association says. Well, that's grooming. So, why do you feel that bringing up that the church is doing this somehow makes this problem go away? It doesn't. Both can be true. That is why it's logically fallacious. I'm also done with the accusations of moral panic, or suggesting that if we bring these things up, that we're placing people in danger. If you were around this shit when it's going on, where people are saying we're coming for your children at pride events, you should be panicking. You should be speaking up and stopping these people. If you care about LGBTQ people at all, you should be saying something, because this is sheer stupidity. This will lead to people getting hurt. And playing around with the emotions of the people that it is that you're trying to convince you're not a threat to is just stupid. Just like the gay choir guy, he thought he was like, it's a parody, it's a joke. Didn't you see how hilarious it was? No, it's not. It might be hilarious to somebody who does not have a child who's ever been abused. It's certainly not hilarious to any of the children who have been abused. It's certainly not funny to the parents of the children who have been abused. This is right up there with convincing racial activists that the best way for them to fight the fact that they are being profiled as violent criminals would be to go out into the streets and loot and burn and behave like violent criminals. It's absolutely asinine. If you are involved with this and you're not saying anything, go to your local proctologist. They may need some help from a chiropractor to remove your head from your ass. I'm going to end this video by bringing to your attention another BitChute exclusive. I got a hold of some video that has largely been scrubbed from the internet of a certain LGBTQ activist who is highly regarded in the community, having a history of being groomed themselves. Link will be in the description. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, folks. I'm getting a much more respectable number of people here now. Welcome to V Radio, and thank you to those of you who had already seen that video for enduring that. I just wanted to take an opportunity, for people to get in here. And so somebody's bringing up Foucault in the chat, Oceana23. I'm actually going to be doing a video specifically about Foucault and another guy named Wilhelm Reich, who were both like, Wilhelm Reich was literally writing a book about like how to fight fascism, and openly stated that you need to sexualize children to protect them from fascism. Like, he's an Antifa author. And then Foucault is a communist leaning guy who wanted to, who actively raped boys. Like he went overseas to get himself some, young boys that were prostitutes. And he's another guy who's highly influential in Antifa circles. So that's why you end up with these people, going and protecting these events. So, but anyway, we're going to be talking about a lot of that stuff, and the origins of queer theory. Well, we're also going to talk about John Money and Kinsey and all of that. I'm putting together a documentary called OK Groomer, and it's probably going to end up being another BitChute exclusive because there's no freaking way that I'm going to be able to put something like that up here because I'm going to end up. No, you didn't miss anything, Barton. I'm still going. I just played that other video just to get you guys warmed up again and remind you about how serious this issue is before I got started on the stream. I wanted to give people some time to get in here. I used to have a little meme video that I would play for that purpose. I'm going to have to do that again. Coming up tomorrow, one of two things is going to happen. Just a little station identification. Liberty Unleashed and I will be doing another co-show on Sunday at 6. It's going to be one of two things. It's either going to be that I'm going to bring on Clint Curtis, the hacker who testified before Congress that he was paid to rig elections, because now we're allowed to talk about that on YouTube again. I actually got banned for a week for talking about it for about 10 seconds once during a 6-hour stream during the Rittenhouse trial. We're either going to talk to him. I haven't had a chance to confirm that yet. I got a hold of his secretary today, but he's going to come on the show to talk about, election rigging, because now we're allowed to talk about it again. The other possibility for tomorrow at 6 will be discussing and a deep dive into who the Patriot Front actually are, and going over information about that. So, and I'll put it on Rumble and I'll put it on Odyssey, KM. I'll put it everywhere that I can. It's just not going to end up here. But part of the problem is, and that's why I have to do this, is people always ask, like, why do you use such graphic footage? And the reality is this, especially when it comes to the topic of dog combers, is that we're in a situation where if you don't show them the raw footage and the raw pictures, then they just deny it's happening. And they'll just say, that's not true. You need to stop watching, Fox News and blah, 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 blah. Like, that's not actually happening. You have no choice at that point but to show the most brazen and disgusting pictures and videos in order to get your point across. If you don't do it, you're just a liar. That's how this works. So I want to thank all of you for tuning in. Let's get into what we were here to talk about today. Okay. So Barton says he is the identity of the two that wear a mask. Yeah, there's some information about that. One of them wasn't even wearing a mask. It's a guy that they identified, I guess, who got kicked out of the Proud Boys for racism, which was extremely ironic. So anyway, the reason I played that video again is that if you remember, guys, what was it that I was ranting about? I said that somebody might get hurt. This brazen suggesting we're coming for your children during Pride Month. It's not funny. It's not cute. It's dangerous. It's not only not funny because there are kids who have been targeted and their lives are destroyed because of it. It's not funny because we're talking about child rape, right? That's what you're insinuating. It's not funny because you think you're trolling people by insinuating that you might come after their children. This is just sheer lunacy. And I actually shared that video with Leah Keith, and she completely agreed with me. And she's a longtime lesbian activist. The LGB would like to get a divorce from the T and the Q. And at this point, I kind of hope that it happens, because as much as there are trans people I care about, there are, right? I had Freya on the show. She's great. It also is a problem with what's going on in that activism is just out of control. And when Mac Beggs talked to me on the phone, they agreed with me about a lot of that stuff. And I'll be going into what I'm going to do about that Mac Beggs situation here pretty soon. I'm still just trying to give them some opportunity to reply to me before I do it. But I have some more information, and I also have a recorded phone call conversation with Mac Beggs. And I'm not going to release the whole thing because there's private information there that's not relevant. But we will have more discussion about Mac Beggs before I am finished. I was just hoping to bring them on so that they can discuss it themselves. But apparently they ghosted. They went from rescheduling to no longer answering my phone calls and no longer answering my texts. So we'll see what comes out of it. I want to once again thank everybody who showed up for the various times that I scheduled that interview that it didn't end up happening. So, But anyway, you guys came here to talk about the, or rather to learn about the stabbing. Lucifer the Doberman super chat. What does it say? Yeah. I know you hate me, but you do amazing work. Keep it up. I don't hate you, Lucifer. You have to remember what this is about. You're one of my mods, and I made it clear that my problem with Sitch and Adam had to do with them giving misleading information about what went on in Iraq. And as Glenn Greenwald has recently revealed, the same people who brought us Iraq are influencing what's going on in Ukraine right now. And when they circulate stupidity like, have you considered America bad, to mock anyone who thinks that the US government might ever do anything wrong in its foreign policy, yeah, I'm going to say something about that. And it's not my ego. It's that somebody is saying something grossly bad and stupid and misleading and dangerous. Millions of people died because of Iraq. Hundreds of thousands. But you get the point. It's not, that's not something somebody should just be free to lie about and not get called out about it. It has nothing to do with my ego. So, and that's why you got deranged. It wasn't because you dared challenge my authority, and it wasn't because, I was trying to censor you or whatever other ridiculous nonsense that the people who circle jerk in Sitch and Adams chat was saying. It was because of the fact that, no, it's not about my ego, period. I don't do this shit for my ego. And I'm certainly not biased. That was another thing that Sitch and Adam said about me that's ridiculous. Like, I'm the left-leaning guy who alienated 70% of his audience because I told the truth about Kyle Rittenhouse. But that's a topic for another time. I still have one final video to do about Sitch and Adam because I have clips of them shit-talking me on their stream and just inventing lies that I'm going to be dealing with. So, but let's get into the stream here, guys. I always answer the... Oh, okay. So FX says, even Adam recently has pushed back on Sitch's high standard of evidence that does not allow for the human nature and trust of authority. Well, that's good. Maybe they'll, again, they're right up there in the same club of these are the people who need to make an appointment with their proctologist to pull their heads out of their ass, because I just, it's not just, again, it's not just that you disagree with it or whatever. It's just dangerous. That's the kind of rhetoric that covers up for these people that take us to these ridiculous wars. So anyway, enough about them for now. We'll get back to the foreign policy issue, I assure you, because I'm really big on anti-war. We're now going to discuss the issue of the stabbing in Waterloo, Canada, that went on, and I'm going to start with this video first. You have to excuse the little pauses in between when I'm doing things. I'm still getting used to navigating Restream in a seamless manner. But warning, this video contains disturbing content not suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. I mean, they're going to label this an adult video as it is. All right, folks, let's get into it.
How are you feeling today?
I think I'm still like in an adrenaline rush. Like, that's something that the therapists had said to us, and like I'm still a bit of shock, and also I'm just feeling a bit angry because like I personally was not injured from the attack. Like, I was scared for my life, but I know that my professor and two of my classmates were injured.
What happened?
So our class it's called Gender Issues, but it's like philosophy of gender, and we had been going through one of the course readings, and we had just finished that, and the professor wanted to talk to us about the course project for the term. So it was towards the end of the class, and a man came in with a backpack. He said to the teacher, like, "Oh, is this such and such psychology class?" And the professor replied, "Oh, no, you're probably in the wrong class." Then he said, "Oh, what class is this?" The professor replied, like, "This is a gender class, or philosophy of gender class." The man then replied and said, "Oh, can I stay?" The professor then said to him, "We need to continue our class. Could you please leave?" And while the man was listening to her reply, he put down his backpack in front of him at his feet, and he pulled out a knife. And it still had like one of those like sheaths or covers on it, like a plastic one. And the thing that disgusts me the most is that this vile, mischievous smile that he had on his face, and immediately the professor's face like just turned to like pure fear, and also the other classmates were like starting to scream. He raised the knife and started chasing the professor. She ran down the middle of the classroom. So our classroom is like a rectangle, but there's only one entrance at the front where the man had entered, and she ran to the back of the class. At this point, it was just pandemonium. Everyone was screaming, and what I remember was just being near the front row, sitting in fear, thinking, what's going on? My professor was running in the back, being chased by this guy, and the whole time, I don't think he said anything. He was just chasing her. And I thought in the heat of the moment, I need to like at least attack him or injure him. So I grabbed a chair right as he cornered the professor in the back of the room and threw a chair at him. And when I threw the chair, I remember seeing the professor was like on the ground covering her face and screaming. And I threw the chair, and then the next thing I know, I was running outside with a bunch of the other students, and I was screaming to them like, get out of the building now, because, you know, like, don't be in the building, just leave. Eventually, I saw, it was me and I think, 3 other students, all girls. We ended up fleeing out of one of the Haggie Hall entrances, the main entrance for the theater. And we were running down like a set of stairs, and we saw 2 maintenance workers and started screaming at them. There's a man with a knife attacking our teacher, call 911. And at this point, I realized I had left my phone in the class. But thankfully, one of me and the other students, like, she had her phone with us, and we then called 911. And then me and the people who were not like crying hysterically, we started screaming at anyone we saw walking towards the building, don't go in, like, go home, and call 911.
Did you see him injure these people?
No.
Did you see her get injured?
I witnessed the initial moments when he began stabbing the professor while she was on the ground in the back of the room. I only know about the injuries from the testimony of the other students once we had gathered in the crowds with the police and paramedics. Once we were outside and we had gathered with other like people from the street and all like, you know, cool down period with each other, we were sitting on the lawn near like Haggie Hall and the like, I think that's the Career Center building, and that's where all the cops had parked in the ambulances and the SWAT team. I saw like the man, like based on the figure and the color of his clothes, in cuffs with 2 officers escorting the attacker to a car. That's all I saw. But I got a view of his face when he was in the class, because he was at the front of the class talking to our professor.
Police say this was a gender issues class. Police believe he was motivated by hate. Do you agree with that?
Honestly, I think that's the truth. Now, I say that because, like, as I described when the man entered the room, the sort of distraction questions he sort of asked, like, is this a psychology class? Now, if someone is lost and they're told this is such and such class, they would probably leave because they are looking for their psychology class. But the fact that his body language changed when the professor answered that this is like the gender philosophy class, that I think this was motivated.
Why?
And by like hatred of transgender people and queer people in general. If I may speak my own opinion about this for a bit.
Sure.
So in the last few years, there's been a lot of social stress and anxiety over the treatment of like transgender people in society.
So I have to agree with the people in the chat that are saying that something seems a little off about this. This guy reminds me a little bit of the, I can't believe I forgot his name. But anyway, he went to a school where there was a mass shooting, and now he's kind of a professional grifter on that topic. But there's something not 100% authentic about this. But I mean, I'm not going to speculate. I'm not saying he's a crisis actor or something, but one of the things we're going to be talking about today is the way that the media is just eating this up, and the rhetoric that's going to be spit out, especially the Rising clip I'm going to show you guys. The Rising clip is literally why I did this stream, and you'll see when I get to it. But first, let's get the facts out.
society, ranging from, like decent acceptance, the same way like gay people like me are being treated, versus the sort of double speak that you will hear certain social conservatives say about they don't want gender ideology being taught to children, or the accusations that we might hear in some news stories of like the children being taught to be transgender. In my opinion, that's complete nonsense, because if I replace transgender with like gay or lesbian, immediately most people would say that's complete. And based on my own awareness of some people in society who are just bigots and violent bigots, like this incident shows, the fact that this person was so, like, he almost smiled when he learned that this was the gender class. Now, there is a sort of conspiratorial talking point of how the universities are indoctrinating the children and the kids into being transgender or hating traditional values or some nonsense like that. But I've taken this gender class. This class is about seriously looking at like, what is gender based on the cultural, historical, and social context of a society, and asking what should we do, what really are the facts of like how human existence is, and saying what are it's all open-ended questions. Like the syllabus of the class is like, what is sex and what is gender? What are the facts of this? Right. And what does this mean for like treatment of other people and political and social policy? Did I expect this to happen? Honestly, a bit. Because just given the social and political climate of the last few years of like violent right-wing conspiracies spewed through like social media and becoming a talking point even in the mainstream media, I'm not surprised that eventually someone becomes so ideologically deluded that they think that they're doing justice when they attack an instructor and children. Mm-hmm. One thing I want to emphasize is that my classmates are like second and third years. They're like maybe 20, 21. Like these are kids. And
were you afraid for your life?
Yes.
You thought this man could have killed someone?
Yes. He clearly wanted to kill someone.
Oh my God.
Like I heard from my friends, in the cool down period, that the university had done some sort of emergency alert test this morning, like the morning yesterday on Wednesday, the day of the attack. However, when the attack happened, there was at least 20, 40 minutes before the police had arrived, and there was no like campus-wide alert or even just a suggestion, even something saying like maybe you should leave campus.
Why did you want to talk to me?
Like I'll be honest, like after we had fled the building and we'd been gathered and were meeting with the wonderful therapists and counselors, mm-hmm. we were asked by the police if we were willing to give interviews to the detectives. And one horrible thing is that because the attack happened in our classroom, a lot of us had left our home keys, our wallets, and our phones in the class. It's our life or our property. Life trumps over that. And the result was a lot of us were just waiting for the police to finish their forensics, because then they would give us the items that were clean of blood. Some students, their belongings were stained with the blood of their classmates and the instructor. So all of us were just shaking, and by the end, maybe like 5 or 6, it was just exhaustion and like dry tears.
So the more this goes on, the more it feels like he had, like, as Tam pointed out, so many buzzwords. Like, he seems awfully prepared to discuss this issue in an extremely in-depth political way, right? Again, I'm not conspiracy theorizing if this is a crisis actor or whatever. That's not the issue. But whoever this is very clearly trying to twist this ideologically. They don't want to discuss any other motivation. It's about dangerous right-wing rhetoric. It couldn't possibly have anything to do with people marching at pride parades chanting that they're coming for your children. Couldn't have anything to do with that. It couldn't have anything to do with the insane, ridiculous, like hateful and often like just what would I say, like inquisition like behavior of the woke movement. Couldn't have anything to do with telling parents, that you're a bad person if you don't go along with what we're doing. It couldn't have anything to do with telling kids that it's okay to lie to their parents about it. It couldn't have anything to do with all the lies about the fact that they are, in fact, targeting children for this indoctrination. It couldn't be anything to do with the guy, George Takei, who just happened to have his first sexual activity at 13 years old from an adult camp counselor, going out telling everyone that there's no grooming going on. Couldn't have anything to do with any of that. It's all got to be about right wing this and right wing that. This is your fault. You made this happen because you complained about the thing that is actually going on, that we're desperately lying, trying to convince you is not going on. Since Strategic Eyes is in this, chat, I want to say hello, and I also want to say let's keep going.
And so for me, I knew my stuff was at the front of the class, and I thought, I could probably get my stuff. It's not, a piece of evidence for the crime. And eventually one of the officers said, like, they're now willing to let us take some of our items that are clean before addressing the stained with blood items for the students in the back. And honestly, I was just emotionally exhausted. I just wanted to go home. And a bunch of my friends had like come to the building to like take me home. We ended up walking home. And one of my classmates said a reporter from Global News was looking for people from the actual room. And
wow.
I
Thank
feel
you so much. Thank you.
Sorry about that. So the other thing is I saw people in the chat commenting that the interviewer looked like she was smiling, and I didn't see that at first. I did see her look like she was about to burst into tears or whatever. But it did, it was weird because it almost looked like she was mildly amused or something. Like that was the thing. So anyway, moving on. We're gonna watch some of the news coverage on this topic. We're gonna watch the police coverage on this topic. A couple of other things, and then we're going to get into the main reason why I decided to do this was that the way that this is being spun in seconds to try to look like this is the fault of right-wing talking points or whatever is absolutely disgusting. And they're blaming people like Jordan Peterson, for example. We're going to get into that in a moment. You have to sit there and we get to listen to poor Robbie over at Rising have to suffer through Brianna Joy Gray again. You're listening to V Radio, folks. Make sure that you go to hy.page/V Radio and check me out on all my mediums. I'm going to be doing streams like this a lot, I imagine. My days are probably numbered on YouTube. It's just a matter of time. So make sure that you can come over to the, to Rumble and all the other places I am, Odyssey, etc. But yeah, we actually, John Jackson, we will be looking at some photos of the guy, and I have an article that's specifically trying to identify who he is. In fact, maybe we should just go ahead and go to that next. We'll do that. So there's one article that I found that actually tried to get into him. It's currently out of, and I'm sorry for taking my image down, guys. For some reason, when I use the virtual camera on OBS, it creates all those video problems you saw when I was trying to play that. But anyway, they basically, one article actually tried to get into who he was, and again it's from a website that I can't really confirm how great it is, but we'll definitely see there, but yeah, Strategic Eyes. If you haven't checked out Strategic Eyes, you should totally check out his channel, give it a subscription. He's one of my favorite YouTubers, and he's also criminally undersubbed and somehow got demonetized, and his stuff is more like tame than mine, so although still very good. I know, and I'm not trying to denigrate it. What I'm getting at is that the idea that they would demonetize him and then somehow I'm still monetized. Or actually, my monetization thing was kind of weird because it went from I'm monetized, I get demonetized, I apply to get remonetized, and they deny me. Then, like months later, I somehow got remonetized without asking, without, it was just suddenly done. I'm like, all right, well, I'm not going to argue with this. So, anyway, guys, you can find him in my featured channels, and we always share his stuff every time we see it. You guys will totally love Strategic Eyes. One of my favorites. So, all right, let's go ahead and get into the next thing I wanted to watch about this. Actually, we'll look at this article, as John Jackson pointed out, to kind of get a better idea of who this kid is, the one who did the stabbing, not the weird like activist guy who was obviously jumping on TV to throw as many buzzwords out as possible. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to stop screen sharing that. You can look at my ugly OBS symbol for just a moment. Oh, okay. Let's see. So this is a picture of him. And yeah, he's a little odd looking, for sure. But this is the guy apparently who did it. This was put up on 4chan because I always, when something like this happens, they usually have like in-depth information about people like this. But yeah, not exactly a normal looking dude. But I guess what is normal, but and then so I have this article, which is actually where I got some of the information from his social media. And if anybody has stuff like that, if you get any pictures of a guy's social media, make sure I get it, because in many cases, right after something like this, information like about what's posted on someone's social media is one of the first things to go. So if you see stuff like this, make sure you grab it as soon as you can. And again, I don't know this website very well, but this information fits in pretty well with all the other information that I've seen. But here's the guy again. And once again, not your straight white male MAGA hot Christian wearing Trump supporting guy, obviously. So much for that, right? But apparently his name is Giovanni Villalaba Ailman. A 24-year-old international student was arrested after a stabbing spree at the University of Waterloo in Canada. Left 3 people, including a professor, injured during a gender studies class. The incident reportedly occurred Wednesday on June 28, 2023, when the suspect walked into a Canadian university lecture classroom and stabbed a 38-year-old professor. The suspect then proceeded to slash a 20-year-old female student and a 19-year-old male student with a knife after they tried to save the professor from the violent assault. They're saying, quote, the accused targeted a gender studies class and investigators believe it was a hate-motivated incident related to gender expression and gender identity. But like this is a picture of him getting arrested, and then a picture of his Facebook account. What's really important is that like we still, from what I understand, we still don't have the manifesto of the recent trans shooter, for example. They want to cover this kind of stuff up. The only reason I know that Daryl Brooks was a white supremacist, and the only reason that I know that white supremacist, black supremacist. The only reason that I know that the New York City shooter was a black supremacist is because you go to their social media as fast as you can and get as much information as you can, because they will scrap that shit as quick as possible so that they can take control of the media and take control of the narrative. Like if you remember, guys, like what were all the reports about Kyle Rittenhouse? Were all like, white suspected supremacist, fascist guy. And it all ended up being false. But your only evidence at that point is going to be stuff like this, so but that's him. It says, actually, okay, because there we go. It says apparently he disliked the pride events at the University of Waterloo. On Thursday, June 29th, regional police revealed that Waterloo stabbing suspect is a recent graduate from the school where the attack had occurred. Facebook account that appeared to belong to the suspect showed that Giovanni Villalaba Ailman is originally from Quito, Ecuador, and was living in Waterloo, Ontario, while he was studying at the university prior to moving to Canada for his college studies. He graduated from Unidad Educativa Municipal Calderon High School in Ecuador in 2017. Whoever Americana is says, I've talked to a few of his friends, and so far, who all say they're pretty shocked But there was something off, and he really struggled to interact with people. He mostly spent all his free time online and by himself. Anyway, the page revealed that he moved to Canada in 2018, where he started studying at the school. The page stated that the suspect graduated from the university. Anyway, this is the kid. Again, kind of a socially awkward guy. I can't imagine anybody choosing to wear clothes like that in the 20th century, but apparently we did. So anyway, that's what I had as far as like more information about him, but apparently he doesn't care for pride events. So that's what they said. He was some kind of conservative from Ecuador, but don't forget, it's only straight white males who ever hate anybody, right? So anyway, let's go ahead and get back to the next one I wanted to go over. We're going to go over some of the coverage that came from, let me see. Well, actually, let's start with the police press conference, and then we'll take it from there. Thanks for your listening today, guys. Sorry I don't have my pretty channel picture up right now. Again, for some reason that feature of OBS is causing my other videos to lag, and it looks terrible when I look back on it later. So I don't know what the story is, because I've never had that problem before. I have a much more powerful computer. I have a good internet connection, but when I play videos on YouTube right now during streams, it's causing problems. So, but anyway, Black Sheepdog says he's dying in this Texas heat. I think it's probably karma for all the times you claimed that my hair was purple. So you're getting what you deserve, buddy. You should watch the Joker movie. Call people's hair purple. You might end up getting hot down in Texas. And I don't mean in a good way. All right, so you see, where is it? What's it called? Okay, here we go. Sorry about this, folks. This is not the greatest way to do this, but wanted to get it done quickly. Find it this way. Okay, here we go. Police press conference on this topic. I'll pause it periodically. If it gets to be too boring or whatever, we'll take it off. Let's have a look.
Good afternoon. My name is Constable Andre Johnson. For joining us today as we provide an update on the multiple stabbing incident that occurred yesterday on the campus of the University of Waterloo. Chief Mark Kroll will be providing an update on the investigation. Also present is James Rush, Vice President, Academic and Provost, and Karen Redman, Regional Chair and Chair of the Waterloo Regional Police Services Board. After prepared remarks have been provided, we will allow questions from the media regarding the investigation. Chief Kroll.
Thanks, Andre. Good afternoon. I'd like to thank you all for joining today as we provide an update into the major incident that took place yesterday on the campus of the University of Waterloo. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the victims of the attack, all the students, faculty, staff, and the University of Waterloo community who were affected by these senseless acts of violence. On behalf of the Waterloo Regional Police Service, we denounce all forms of hate in Waterloo Region and beyond, and we stand with those who are targeted by these crimes. I also want to take a moment to thank all those emergency services personnel who responded to the critical incident yesterday, including Waterloo Region Paramedic Services and the University of Waterloo Special Constable Services. Members of our integrated mobile police and crisis team, IMPACT, those are our partners with the Canadian Mental Health Association, were on scene on campus throughout the evening yesterday and remain engaged throughout campus providing support. Today we are announcing that we have arrested Giovanni Villalba Ailman, a 24-year-old male who was an international student at the University of Waterloo who recently graduated. He has been charged with the following offenses: 3 counts of aggravated assault, 4 counts of assault with a weapon, 2 counts of possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose, and mischief under $5,000. Mr. Villalba Ailman was held in police custody overnight. A court appearance was held today and may still be ongoing, and we have recommended that he be remanded in custody. I want to take some time to walk through our investigation to date and provide some clarity on the circumstances that led to the devastating violence that occurred yesterday. At 3:37 p.m., our communications center received multiple 911 calls from students at the University of Waterloo advising that people inside a classroom had been stabbed. Thankfully and proudly, members of the Waterloo Regional Police Service immediately responded and arrested the suspect to quickly restore public safety and calm. Members of the WRPS Neighborhood Policing North Division Patrol were immediately dispatched to the university campus. The first officer arrived on scene within 3 minutes at 3:40 p.m. Officers were directed inside of Haggie Hall, where the stabbings had occurred, and they located the accused male within the building and placed him under arrest without further incident. Initially the accused had posed to be a victim. However, officers quickly identified him and placed him under arrest once he was identified based on the description provided. Since our initial response, we have learned more information in regards to exactly what occurred. WRPS investigators have determined that the accused specifically targeted a gender studies class in Haggie Hall at approximately 3:30 p.m. The accused was not a member of the class, but spoke with the professor in the classroom before attacking her with 2 large knives without provocation. Several students attempted to stop the attack, while others fled the room. While students were trying to escape, the accused stabbed 2 students and attempted to stab a 3rd student who was not physically injured. As a result of the attack, the following physical injuries were reported. The involved professor, a 38-year-old female, sustained serious but not life-threatening injuries from the stab wounds and was transported to an out-of-region hospital. 2 students within the class were injured. A 20-year-old female sustained serious but non-life-threatening injuries from stab wounds and was transported to an out-of-region hospital as well. And a 19-year-old male sustained non-life-threatening injuries as a result of stab wounds and was transported to a local hospital. In terms of the investigation that has been conducted thus far, investigators have reason to believe that this was a planned and targeted attack motivated by hate related to gender expression and gender identity. I'd like to stress that the investigation remains underway and some details have not yet been clarified. We appreciate your collective patience while this occurs. We have since sought judicial authorization to search the suspect's home to further our investigation. At this point, there's no information to suggest that the suspect coordinated with anyone else in carrying out this attack. At this point, our investigators are not ruling anything out in understanding the motivations behind this incident. And as always, we work closely with other policing and public safety partners, however necessary. The WRPS Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Unit has conducted outreach with effective community partners across Waterloo Region. It is both sad and disturbing that this incident has occurred during Pride Month, a time where we celebrate and recognize members of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. We hope that...
Oh my God, the police department has a diversity, equity, and inclusion department? Oh, Dan. And of course, it's terrible that it happened during Pride Month. Let's keep going.
This incident does not diminish from these celebrations, but instead encourages us all to come together, to continue to celebrate and continue to inspire love over hate. Again, we extend our sincere condolences to all those impacted by this senseless act of hatred. Our members will continue to work tirelessly on this investigation to ensure that no further harm or threat exists and to bring closure to victims, the University of Waterloo, and the entire Waterloo Region community. Once again, I'd like to thank all members of the Waterloo Regional Police Service and all responding community partners who have worked closely with the University towards a safe resolution to this dynamic and traumatic incident. After we hear from Chair Karen Redman, who is the Chair of our Police Services Board and Chair of the Regional Waterloo Region, I will be available to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
So, good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. I first want to acknowledge that our hearts are with the entire University of Waterloo today, and I am especially thinking of the professor and the students in that class. On behalf of the Regional Council, I am wishing for a speedy recovery for all victims as well as healing for all within the University of Waterloo community. Please know you have my support and the support of the entire Waterloo region. As chair of both the Region of Waterloo and the Waterloo Regional Police Service Board, I would like to start by acknowledging the incredible response by our first responders to yesterday's horrific attack. I'm thankful for how WRPS and other emergency services personnel quickly apprehended the suspect and provided immediate support to victims. Like everyone, I read the news of what happened yesterday with shock, horror, and a great deal of sadness. This community has been my home for my entire life, and I am proud that we are known internationally as a safe, welcoming, and inclusive place. Yesterday's violence is not Waterloo Region. It is not the community that we call home. This incident is a tragic reminder during Pride Month that as we celebrate our progress, the safety and well-being of some in our community is still in question. Today, we are one community standing strong behind you, and we hope for a quick recovery and healing. As this investigation is ongoing, I know WRPS will be thorough and meticulous. And again, I want to thank the staff, students, and community at the University of Waterloo for their response and the greater community for its support. While this is shocking and horrific act, it must be denounced. We must make it exceptionally clear that hate or prejudice in any form is unacceptable. Gender-based violence undermines the dignity and the rights of all residents. Let's use our collective voice to speak out, promote inclusion, and recommit to the necessary and critical work to create a safe, welcoming, and inclusive community for absolutely everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Absolutely everyone except for straight, white, cisgender males. Anyway, let's go.
Chief Kroll, and thank you, Chair Redmond. We will now open the floor up for any questions that you may have.
Chief Simon Dingley from CBC News. You mentioned the hate and the gender. Can you give us a bit more about that? I noticed you also mentioned, especially since it's Pride Month, did it have anything to do with the gay community?
So the details we're forming right now. So we're being careful, but also quite direct, and we believe this was a targeted, specific attack related to gender expression and gender identity. And so, in absolutely, we're for the 2S LGBTQ plus community, we believe was targeted sort of broadly and at large here. We don't believe that the individuals themselves were targeted for that purpose, but we believe that the class subject was of interest to the suspect, and that was the origins of what's transpired.
You said he carried 2 knives with him?
Yes.
And also, can you tell us where he's from? He's an international student?
So I just want to be consistent with information that we have released. Have we provided that information to date yet? Okay, so just to be consistent, we have not provided that information. We will look forward to further follow-ups as time
That's
transpires.
okay. I provided it.
How many minutes from when police first arrived, when he was apprehended?
I don't have the precise timeline, but it was within minutes. We were on campus and on scene within 3 minutes, and it was shortly thereafter. So we can provide a follow-up with that precise detail.
Sir, I understand there was a delay in the alert system going out to the students in the university. Can you, up to 90 minutes, can you confirm that and tell us about that?
I have no specifics about the alert system on campus there. So we have a member of the University of Waterloo here today who may be able to speak to that. But I'd just like to clarify that the Waterloo Regional Police Service has an integrated member on campus with the University of Waterloo who helps to run and also coordinate the special constable services. So from a partnership and a campus safety perspective, we believe that it is a safe campus overall. We believe that there are measures in place from a planning and a reaction standpoint that are in line with public expectations and our best efforts to provide a safe campus given its size and scope. So I know in speaking with policing partners across Canada that this has been a troubling and disturbing trend that we've seen, especially during Pride Month. I think we all know that there's a polarization in society right now, both online and in the real world, and there's conversations that are spilling over into everyday life. And so I can say that we have seen in our community a small uptick in events recently related to targeting the Pride 2S LGBTQ plus community and hate-motivated incidents, and we're absolutely focused on addressing those with the best efforts that we have.
Sticking with online, a couple of students that we spoke to, they said that they were hearing chatter about this attack. Is that something that Waterloo mentioned has heard, or is that something you guys are looking into now?
So I'm not familiar with any of the chatter. What I can say is there's a flurry of activity that does occur. I'm not aware from an investigative standpoint about information before this event took place, but certainly after, there's all kinds of conversations that occur online. So as part of a fulsome and thorough investigation, we take everything into context, and our investigators will not leave anything out. We will leave no stone unturned in ensuring that we have a full scope of understanding what exactly has happened.
Sorry, can you go into more detail? You said once officers arrived, he was pretending to be a victim?
Yeah, the information I have is that once the initial attacks occurred, that you can imagine a flurry of movement and activity, and that he sought to blend in and essentially to hide in plain sight, while we had responded, and sought to blend in with those who were also fleeing or present at the time. So thankfully, because of excellent witness information, we had a good description of who the individual was, and we were able to identify that was a suspect we were looking for.
So there was some intervention, some of the students who were, can you speak at all about what transpired there, or how they intervened, or what happened in that situation?
So from what I'm aware of, I believe it was a class of approximately 40 individuals. And once the attacks occurred, obviously it was of great concern to everyone there, shock. And there was those who were seeking to actively involve themselves to stop the attack, throwing objects. It's been described to me that some chairs and other objects were thrown at the attacker. So I don't have a full picture for exactly what transpired, but I applaud those who really sought to stand up and to intervene in the best way they could.
And were some of those the ones that were injured, the ones that intervened?
I'm not sure, Jeff, in particular. Yeah.
Chief, I'm sorry if you answered this, my apologies. Was he a student on campus, or was he not related to school in any way?
So to the best of my knowledge, I believe that he was a student at some point. I can't speak to his active status in terms of his graduation or status with on campus, but it's been described that he was a student at some point in time.
Are you able to elaborate a little bit more on how you found out that he was targeting the LGBTQ community? Is there something that he said or something that he did that made it clear that it might be hate motivated?
So to date, and there's certainly more depth to the investigation, which we'll look forward to sharing at a later date once we have a fulsome picture. But just the sheer notion that the class itself was of a gendered studies or gender issues class, that was the title of it to our knowledge, that we believe this was a specific and targeted purpose for him to be there. We have information that he inquired about the title or the subject matter of the class, and we believe that was with purpose. And the information that we're gathering today lends us to believe through the course of our investigation, and including an interview with the accused, that that was his purpose, was to make a statement, was to purposely target that subject matter of gender identity and gender expression.
Chief, Jimmy with CTV, I'm trying to decipher this clearly because it's, as we know, it's super emotional subject in their real life. Did he have an online presence that indicated also that he was hate motivated, or was it just a conversation he had with the teacher or the professor just prior to the attack?
So I'm not personally aware of any online activity. That's part of our investigation, and we look forward to potentially providing a follow-up response to that. What I can say that there was that exchange with the teacher in question that led us to believe that he was specifically interested in the class subject itself from an ideological perspective. And also our investigators have sought judicial authorization for the subject's residence, as well as a deeper scope in terms of any material that might lend us to understand what exactly was the mentality, what was the purpose of what occurred.
Now, Chief, I understand. I understand that there's an evidentiary value that is involved in that conversation, but the conversation he had with the professors, the victim, what was that nature without I know it's a fine line there for you, but to understand this fully, we have to kind of understand what that conversation
Yeah, I believe it was a short conversation just to understand and to verify the subject matter of the class.
So he asked
yeah.
the professor,
What's the class? Yeah, something to that nature, yeah.
There was an answer, and then he just began the attack, nothing more after that?
Essentially, yes.
Was known to police at all before?
He has no criminal record.
I understand there's an additional charge for him a little bit from, I believe about a week before. Can you speak about that at all and what that charge is about and relating to?
So I'm not, maybe Jeff, I've confused maybe something here. What I can verify is because there was an individual who was not physically injured, but there was an attempt to harm another individual, we've laid an additional count of assault with a weapon for the attempted assault with a knife on an individual who was able to escape from the grasp. But I'm not.
Is there a mischief charge as well?
So that's a portion of the investigation that we're still not disclosing at this point in time, related to an object that was destroyed, and we'll provide further information as the investigation unfolds.
You said earlier there was an uptick in attacks against the community. Can you describe what some of those attacks have looked like in the region?
So what I can say is locally and also across Ontario and Canada, we've seen a number of pride flags that have been torn down, taken down in that manner, and that relates to to a mischief-related offense. And so I think you're all aware that there are hate-motivated incidents which may not reach the criminal threshold of a hate crime. And there's also hate crimes which reach that strict legal definition. But we have seen and heard across Canada that there is a disturbing trend of this sort of targeted mischief or destruction of property, specifically related to.
I really need to know what
community.
mischief is.
And we can provide some additional information in regards to the numbers that we've seen over the past couple months. Happy to do that. Yeah.
Sorry, my last one. So obviously you mentioned it.
There's this disturbing trend of mischievous individuals across the country. It's a trend of mischievousness.
How things have kind of been increased the last little while. So what's happening now on campus? Is there going to be an increased police presence for the next little while, because obviously classes are still going on? And I don't know if you have a message for students that might be on edge with having something like this happen.
So we work very closely with our partners at the University of Waterloo, and just want to make it clear that we believe that we have addressed the threat immediately, and we have restored, to the best of our nature, a sense of calm and safety to the campus and the larger community based on eliminating the threat of this individual. We have no reason to believe that there's any others related to this specific incident. In terms of any messaging to students and the larger campus community and the city of Waterloo and the region at large, we just want to reinforce, certainly extending our condolences that this has occurred. Chair Redmond spoke well about, the unacceptability of any act of hatred within this community. But our hearts go out to all those impacted directly, but those who are watching and listening and hearing that this has occurred in our community. It doesn't speak to our values as a police service. It certainly doesn't speak to our values as a region, and I think as society at large, that people will be in any way, shape, or form targeted for who they are, how they express themselves, gender identity, gender expression, or otherwise. So we certainly want to reinforce to all those impacted that we are here for you. As a police service, we will continue to work tirelessly to address this specific investigation, but also to address hate and hate incidents more broadly. And this is an important investigative avenue for us, where we will do everything we can to work with all community partners tirelessly to address issues of this nature.
How does the police investigation go about the spectrum of hate charges related to this?
So we work, on a couple levels. First is the initial response, and then we have specialized investigators that do the fulsome analysis. We have members that work in intelligence services that work with not only provincial but also federal partners working on hate crimes, online presence of those who may be of concern from an online perspective. So the course of this investigation will have a couple different phases. We'll analyze the information that we have at hand through the judicial authorizations, and we'll seek to ensure that there aren't any affiliations, any connections at a larger scale. When it comes to hate crime investigations, there's also a component of working with the crowns, whether provincial or federal, to look at hate incidents and hate crimes themselves, to understand the depths of what we're able to work from a prosecution standpoint. So it's all in partnership, and we'll look forward to providing further information as the investigation unfolds. We're still at an early phase, and we believe that our investigation will reveal further details that will be of interest moving forward.
Have investigators spoken to the victims at all? Like, can you say, outside of what their injuries are like, how they're doing and what they've said and how they're feeling about it?
Yeah, I'm very proud of our response, not only from an emergency perspective, but then there's the whole phase of providing assistance to victims and witnesses as well. The impact of trauma from violence, but even in a deeper sense, is part of what we and our community partners are dedicated to addressing. So we had certainly a presence throughout last night and into today on campus and beyond, conducting those interviews. We're interviewing quite a number of people to understand exactly what happened. But that's just the first phase. We then work with victim services and other partners to provide support. And because there's an equity, diversity, and inclusion lens to this, that's the additional outreach and work that we do as a comprehensive public safety service to ensure that there's deeper things to address here. There's the incident, and there's the total impact of what's occurred more broadly. And so very proud of our members and working with our community leaders and community partners to address this from a specific but then a broad level as well. So part of the timing of today was just staging this to allow the court proceedings to occur. So the individual was held overnight and then was available in court today for a bail hearing. At the time that I entered here today, I believe that the court proceedings were still being finalized. And so we made recommendations to remand the individual in custody, which is when something of this magnitude occurs, because we have continued investigative avenues to go down. That's a normal investigative or another normal recommendation that we make. And so we'll have to wait to see the official news from the court, and we may have that in short order to provide. Okay, I believe there's no further questions. I just want to thank all those who attended here today. I want to thank all those from the WRPS who brought together today.
Yeah.
And we just want to reinforce our partnership with the University of Waterloo. I want to thank Chair Redmond and all community members and all members who have interest here today. This is a shocking and unacceptable event in Canada, in Ontario, and in Waterloo region, and we will do everything in our power to address it to the fullest extent. If you have any specific questions, yeah, Mr. Rush can address them. Yeah, yeah. Sure.
You put out a statement about some of the concerns you have about the response to it. Can you just bring us up to date on what those concerns are?
Yeah, I want to reinforce what the chief said about the swiftness and coordination between Waterloo Regional Police Services and the on-campus constable services in responding to the incident and to bringing the incident to control. But on campus, we did have some concerns about the coordination of all the channels of communicating. So whereas some social media university-based accounts were putting messages out and the web-based communications were occurring, the coordination with our emergency incident alert system wasn't activated as quickly as we would have normally expected. And there are a number of reasons for that, but it's a priority for us.
All right, so this is just kind of bullshit at this point. So we'll move on to the next thing I wanted to talk about in this. But again, the rhetoric is hate. We have to fight hate. How do you fight hate? Is anybody talking about why they hate? What is the hate? Hate is always wrong, so long as it is that they hate anything that we like. Again, if you don't want people to hate you, leave their children alone. That'd probably be a good plan. He didn't just go attack random LGBTQ people. He went and attacked someone teaching gender studies, which, again, I don't advocate for that. Don't commit violence. But you're going to make it a hell of a lot more likely that somebody's going to want to do that if gender studies keeps getting pushed into classrooms with exceedingly younger children. That is going to be dangerous. That is going to get people hurt. And then parading around at pride parades saying we're coming for your children, doing men's choir videos saying we're coming for your children, that's going to get people hurt. Remember, that's what I said, guys. This is going to get somebody hurt. I said it like, what, 2 days ago? And I can't confirm, once again, that this guy went into this classroom and stabbed people because of, what was said at the pride parade. But I think that stuff like that is a hell of a lot more dangerous than the other things that people are trying to equate this to. And I put up a poll. Right now, you can vote. What do you believe causes these violent incidents? Either dangerous right-wing rhetoric or we're coming for your children. And I'm actually pleased to say that some people who are watching my show did click on dangerous right-wing rhetoric, because it means that I still have some diversity of opinion going on here. But I will ask you, if you so desire, please defend that position, because I just don't think, that it's anywhere near as important. So I'm going to move on. We're going to watch the video now. That is the reason that I wanted to do this stream. I literally watched this video with Brianna Joy Gray and Robbie from Rising discussing this issue. And that's what made me go, all right, no, fuck that. I'm going live. So we're going to watch that together. And thanks for tuning into V Radio today. At 60 viewers today, guys. Looking good. I had 70 at one point. It keeps bouncing up and down. So I don't know if it's just people that are jealous of my sexy velvet voice. Or, if they just decided, well, all right, never mind, it's boring, and go watch some myth. So you're always welcome here, folks. All right, so now we're going to watch the Rising video about this, and I'm going to do a reaction to what gets said here, because it's just nuts. Here we go.
Three people were stabbed Wednesday at the University of Waterloo in Canada during a class on gender studies. Now, according to reports, a man wielding a knife burst into a classroom demanding to know the subject being taught. He then stabbed the professor and two other people. The victims sustained non-life-threatening injuries, thank goodness.
The suspect was apprehended and taken into police custody. After the incident, the Waterloo Regional Police Service sought to reassure the public that there was no further threat to public safety. Investigators are still trying to determine a motive. We've buried the lead a little bit. A crucial part of the story and why it's gone so viral on Twitter is that the witness allegedly entered the classroom, asked the professor what the class was about, and then pulled out two knives and started to stab people. And the subject of the classroom was gender studies. So this has ignited a conversation about the extent to which and whether the stigmatization of gender studies broadly and the legislation that's been coming down the pike that attacks trans people's right to dress the way they want, to identify, to get medical interventions that they want, et cetera, have contributed to an atmosphere where people are willing to commit these kind of heinous acts of violence.
Okay, so let's go over what she just fucking said. She said that now a conversation has been ignited on Twitter on whether or not these laws that are being passed against LGBTQ people and the dangerous rhetoric of the right is what creates the environment that lets people think that it's okay to stab people in classrooms. Like, this made my brain explode. Like, I couldn't believe that she said this. This is so ridiculous. So, and the other reason why this is important, guys, is that to suggest this, but at the same time, if Daryl Brooks drives his car into a Christmas parade and murders 8 people, including a little boy, and then injures 40, then it's about the mental health crisis in this country. And Daryl Brooks had, again, black supremacist, racist stuff all over his social media. But it's about mental illness. It's not the rhetoric of Black Lives Matter saying there will be fires, there will be riots and there will be bloodshed. And if anybody doubts that that was said, I've got a clip of it, right? It wasn't that. You know, it's none of that. That dangerous rhetoric that has nothing to do with why Darrell Brooks might have taken a mind to driving his car through a Christmas parade and killing people. Or the New York City shooter, who, again, openly stated in his own YouTube, or not, actually it wasn't YouTube, he had a Facebook channel that he went live on all the time. And a guy was a straight up weird black supremacist, black nationalist, was talking about armed revolution, you know, where they kill all the white people. You know, and then he goes into a subway and he shoots a bunch of people, right? Couldn't have anything to do with the rhetoric that is going on right now that is actively demonizing anyone who is white or straight or male or whatever, right? Definitely just the mental health crisis in this country. This is how they always do it. And sometimes they step on their tongue, so to speak, when they make up dumb things. So if you remember my coverage of the Buffalo shooter, Rolling Stone wrote an article stating that the Buffalo shooter was not a lone wolf, that he was just a mainstream Republican. Come to find out, when you read the guy's manifesto, the Buffalo shooter was in fact identified as a left authoritarian and that he had studied communist ideology since he was 12. Now, he was absolutely a white nationalist, but he was a left authoritarian white nationalist. He had left-leaning ideas, but he was also racist. And the problem is that the right and the left now don't seem to get this, and the left in particular just suggests you can't be on the left if you're racist. They again, I did another video about the political compass and the way that they want it to work. They don't understand that you can't have a binary of right versus left if you're going to create a situation where, for example, I'm supposedly strong right wing, even though I voted for Bernie Sanders in 16 and 20. I'm supposedly far right wing, even though I support Medicare for all, free college, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not going to get into defending that on this broadcast because it's not relevant to what we're talking about. But somehow I can hold all of those beliefs and still be right wing. Somehow Joe Rogan votes for Bernie Sanders and is still right wing. Somehow Tulsi Gabbard, whose platform is almost identical to Bernie Sanders, is far right wing. Somehow Brett Weinstein, who worked for an extremely progressive college before he got run out by an inquisition, is somehow right wing, right? But anyway, I don't want to get too far off topic. So I'm going to play this part again real quickly, and then we're going to go into the rest of this video.
The stigmatization of gender studies broadly and the legislation that's been coming down the pike that attacks trans people's right to dress the way they want, to identify, to get medical interventions that they want, et cetera, have contributed to an atmosphere where people are willing to commit these kind of heinous acts of violence against others.
So again, don't pass laws that prevent early gender transition of children, because it might be the cause of somebody going into a classroom and stabbing people. That's the logic. That's how we're tracking this. And this is only going to get worse. And Robbie, I get the feeling that Robbie is kind of barely clinging to his job. That's going to be the guy you're going to hear from in a moment. He's a libertarian. And because he pushes back here, but sometimes it just feels like he has to sit there silently suffering, listening to Brianna Joy Gray talk. And I would love to debate her, because her whole strategy, if you push back on her, is just to talk over you and interrupt you. And I love those people because I can shut them down. And I actually watched another pundit who was on 2 episodes of Rising before they got rid of her do this to Brianna Joy Gray. Wrecked her face. But anyway, let's get into the rest of the video.
Notably, this happened in Canada,
Right.
so there was
US
not a
legislation
right
involved.
So what I was going to
Which is why Robbie just said, well, this happened in Canada. What does it have to do with U.S. legislation about kids transitioning then?
say is that this happened in Canada, and one of the chief objectors to quote-unquote gender ideology is Canadian professor Jordan Peterson, who just 2 days ago on June 26th tweeted out It is the most reprehensible falsehood that the therapeutic and medical communities ever propagated, and then this is the name of a trans person, and utterly unwarranted by the facts. Prison for the liars and butchers, or millstones in the deep blue sea. And some pointed out, this is an indictment, to, a call to drown people who would promote this kind of gender ideology. And how far away is that from someone taking it in their own hands and stabbing a gender studies professor?
Right. Like I've said on many occasions, I don't think one should use violent or extremist rhetoric in service of their causes. I think that people who carry out violence, it's on them. And
I want to again point out, so now we're going to blame Jordan Peterson. It's Jordan Peterson's fault. Jordan Peterson needs to stop pointing out the truth that there are serious side effects for children to transition, that we don't have enough evidence about it. Because if he keeps doing that, people might randomly walk into classrooms and start stabbing gender studies professors. Again, not the mental health. Mental health is only the very convenient excuse for any time somebody who is pushing the woke agenda does something like this. Then it's mental health. Let's keep going.
And that is never a acceptable, reasonable course of action. So I'm glad that no one was seriously harmed, and I hope this person should be imprisoned and prosecuted to the full extent of the law, and everyone should consider dialing back their rhetoric. Obviously, you have every.
So now he's acquiescing. We should consider dialing back our rhetoric. Should the people who said we're here, we're queer, and we're coming for your children, should they dial back their rhetoric? Should they? Nah. We got to go after the people that are opposing extremely experimental and untested solutions to kids who've been socially contagioned into believing that they're in the wrong body. Then these things will stop.
Right to express a socially conservative or conservative view on gender issues, and to think that what I suppose the child relevant part of the gender question, that the medical proceedings and all of that is wrong or should not be done. You have the right also to support legislation that accomplishes that, but you don't have the right to stab people because they disagree with you or they're teaching something you don't approve of, obviously. So prison for the person involved, and everyone turn down that rhetoric.
Yeah, it's interesting because any calls to turn down rhetoric, or any calls to suggest, as many in the LGBTQ community and allies have been pointing out, is that if you characterize people that you disagree with as subhuman, as monstrous, or as having values that equate to being a pedophile,
or straight, white, cis males, or suggesting that anybody might be a pedophile, but they are very quick to jump in the church bandwagon, just like I mentioned earlier.
Groomer, the lowest of the low, then the consequence of that is some people are going to think that it's morally justifiable to murder them, right? We live in countries, not Canada, I don't believe, but we certainly live in a country where we have the death penalty, and the state takes the position that it is able to kill people if they have committed certain kinds of transgressions, if they've broken the law in certain kinds of ways. And vigilantes believe increasingly that they are able to carry out that sort of vigilante justice without the influence or the criminal justice system interceding first to actually make some assessment. And there's been some frustration. Obviously, we debated at length about the context of the Jordan Neely incident on the New York subway, and whether or not that kind of vigilanteism is both right and or encouraged by certain kinds of rhetoric about the dangers of mental ill or homeless people. And similarly, now there's this conversation about, how much responsibility do public figures who are very popular — Jordan Peterson has millions of followers on Twitter and beyond, tweeting out things like prison for the liars and butchers, or millstones in the deep blue sea. A millstone around one's neck means to drown them in the ocean. Whether or not regardless of if there's any legal liability here, but whether or not it's just a good idea for us to be talking about communities of people, or teachers who simply teach gender studies in a way that would lead some people or contribute to some people having the belief that they deserve death,
Sure, I agree that is not rhetorically smart. I mean, again, they're from the Jordan Peterson or the very socially conservative perspective. Their perspective is that these people are advocating policies that are akin to mutilation of young people. So I understand
Butcher
why
is how he referred to them,
from their
yeah.
perspective. I mean, again, it's a disagreement on the fundamental policy.
But that's
if you
the
agreed
problem.
that policy was akin to child torture or something, you would
be justified. You would feel justified in killing someone, which is the problem. That's exactly the problem.
Very heatedly about the views and practices of the people doing that. You don't have the right to engage in vigilante stuff, and I don't think most socially conservative people accept that you do either. And the overwhelming majority of them want to address these things by the legislative process, and doing that it requires building more support for your position, and random acts of violence being perpetrated against the group of people you disagree with does not actually inspire more public confidence in your position. So that's something I think more on the right should keep in mind if they want to, as they're seeking to build some kind of movement for implementing these policy changes, is that crazy people stabbing or shooting people who might like you or like the things you say is bad PR, and ultimately this is PR if you're trying to win a legislative battle.
Of course, we don't know what the motives of the perpetrator are. This is still very recent, and the fact that he asked what the subject of the class was has led people to believe that this was politically motivated. Of course, we could find out in the coming days that it's not what it appears to be superficially, but certainly the optics at this time, asking what the subject was before perpetrating the crime does seem to suggest that the subject had something to do with the choice to perpetrate the crime.
Right, that is perfectly plausible, although you're right to caveat that we don't really know. This could be someone, I don't know, I don't know how old this person was. His teacher gave him a bad grade, or someone he knew a bad grade or something.
They assaulted both the teacher and two students.
Right. I mean, I was reading in one of the violent incidents. I can't remember which one at a gay establishment. The perpetrator is now saying that he was on drugs and it had nothing to do with anti-gay animus, which of course he's facing hate crime charges or something. So I'm not saying don't take the perpetrator at their word necessarily, but and we always have to keep in mind the Pulse shooting, which infamously did not, in fact, turn out to be an example of someone from their mindset perpetrating an anti-gay issue. It was a
certainly years ago there was an incident in New York in a Dallas barbecue where what was described as a large black man hit a smaller white man, a gay man, over the head with a chair, and it was first reported.
Now, this is important. Watch how quickly she immediately jumps off the topic of the fact that they covered the Pulse shooting as being an anti-LGBTQ attack, and then it was found to not be the case. That she immediately had to pivot to another story because they don't ever want to admit that that was something that they reported badly, because it didn't actually play into their rhetoric at all. Let's continue.
As a hate crime, before it turned out that the black man was also gay, and there was some argument, I think, that was actually racial in nature that might have instigated it. So certainly we should we'll continue to follow the story and see what it bears out. But the ongoing conversation that it's provoked about the relationship between a certain kind of rhetoric by very high-profile people that doesn't just talk about disagreeing with the politics, the views of somebody else, but suggests that they should be killed, is a real issue. Tim Pool obviously was recently implicated in one of these conversations after the white supremacist shooter with the swastika tattoos in the recent shooting, I think that was the Texas Mall shooting, was discovered to have liked Tim Pool, talked about Tim Pool, advocated for, posted his videos and things like that. And instead of responding and saying, well, obviously I disavow that behavior, it should be pretty easy to disavow a white supremacist murderer, there was this effort to say, well, is he really a white supremacist? Could he be a white supremacist because he's Latino?
Yeah, there's an effort to find out what actually happened, Bree. That's what journalism is, you fucking hack.
imagine that anybody might want to know the truth. Right now, you're decrying anyone who dared to analyze, well, wait a second, this doesn't work. Because you have to remember, they need the white supremacist boogeyman. That's why when they cover the Uvalde shooting, they don't talk about the shooter at all. You know why? Because he was freaking Mexican. And Mexicans are not more inclined to commit shootings, just so we're clear. But he definitely did not fit the rhetoric that they were pushing for. The rhetoric is only male white supremacist conservatives commit these acts. And that anytime somebody who is not one of those people does it, we're going to talk about it as little as possible, or we're going to bust off of that and only talk about the police reaction to say something like Uvalde, right? That's why they never talk about the shooter, because his name was like Santana Ramos or something like that. I mean, he was obviously not white. So she is, basically a total hack for calling out, well, yeah, how dare you have the rhetoric to try to discover whether or not the person is actually a white supremacist? You should just join in with us in calling this person out with no evidence. This woman is a moron. Or maybe she's hoping we are. But like, she went into here very specifically. It was like, with her attitude about the whole thing was like, oh, well, I need to prove that Jordan Peterson is at fault for this. How dare you speak, negatively about people who are harming children? That might lead to reprisals. Do you think she's going to make a video calling out that, hey, maybe it's not such a good idea to engage in rhetoric that includes, we're here, we're queer, and we're coming for your children? Do you think she's going to talk about that? No.
Are the tattoos a deep fake? And we had this bizarre media cycle that could have, I think, just been preempted by saying, hey, I don't support mass killings and Nazism. But that seems to be increasingly a difficult thing for folks to say today. Let's see if there's any response.
Mass killings and Nazism. You really twisted my arm. Fine, I'll concede. I don't support mass killings or Nazism.
It's a difficult thing to say you don't support mass killings and Nazism. Nobody said that they supported it, you fucking twit. They said that the person may not be a white supremacist because you, the media, has a tendency to lie about this topic. You have a very specific good guy, bad guy, nonsense role that you want to create here, which is we need as much evidence that straight white Christian, adult males are really dangerous. Like, do you remember that was like, oh God, I remember like there was an article after Kyle Rittenhouse was exonerated that straight white conservative males were the most dangerous demographic in the country because that was the name of the article. It was on CNN, right? That is your desperately needed rhetoric, and that is why you won't get to the bottom of it when anybody who does not fit this rhetoric goes along. Like it was in whenever that doesn't fit your narrative, then you're just going to either downplay it, you're going to distract. We need to talk about the Uvalde police reaction. We're not going to talk about who the shooter was, because then we might have to self-examine for a moment that it's not just voting for Donald Trump or things that Donald Trump says that might lead to mass shootings. That it might be the dangerous rhetoric from, people like Black Lives Matter saying there will be riots, there will be fires, and there will be bloodshed. Just might, right? So that was what I wanted to share with you guys. I'll interact here with the chat for a little bit, and then I got to go. So I want to thank you all for tuning in today. And remember to like and subscribe and ring the bell. Please hit the like button if you haven't already, because otherwise you're going to forget. So I'll stick here with you guys a little while longer. But yeah, Brianna Joy Gray has been harmful to my head, to put it lightly, which is unfortunate because she worked for Bernie Sanders, and so it's really too bad that she's gone down this rabbit hole. But she went into that segment fully hoping to start a fire to blame Jordan Peterson and the laws that are being passed to prevent children from getting trans-affirming care. And you'll also notice when she mentioned that, she didn't point out that it was for kids. Nobody's trying to ban gender-affirming care for adults. Not that I've seen, right?
People are pretty much on that, but she left that little piece out. But it needs to be, if there are killings, it's your fault for having a problem with children transitioning. If there are killings, it needs to be your fault because you didn't like the books that we put in schools. If there's going to be killings, it's going to be your fault because you dared to bring up that there are in fact pedophiles in the education system that are using this opportunity to gain access to children. Then it's your fault for even drawing attention to this fact. You need to just be quiet and shut up and vote the way we want you to, think the way we want you to, talk the way we want you to, use the terms and the pronouns that we want you to. And if you don't obey, then it might just lead to shootings. Now, if we are to say things like riots, fires, and bloodshed, and anybody happens to kill anyone, well, we need to address the mental illness problem in this country. I do agree. We need to address the mental illness problem in this country, but it's not from people like that I'm as worried about. That's too obvious. It's the people pushing the mental illness, like in the nonsense that we just heard. Those people are the ones who need to be addressed, right? They're the problem. So again, I wish I could just sit there and argue with her. It's just like with Emma Vigeland or some of these other people. I would give a testicle to be on the same stage as these people and be able to call them out right to their face, because somebody should have said that right to her as she made that argument. And again, I'm going to have to go back and find the video. There was a woman, she has glasses, blondish hair, and they let her be on Rising a couple times. And I feel terrible for forgetting her name, but she destroyed Brianna Joy Gray and did it just by being assertive. You know, she wasn't yelling at her or anything, but she just decimated her. And it doesn't take much. You just got to have a bit of a spine and you keep your composure. You know, you stay cool and you let them make themselves look like an idiot, you know. And that's the thing that's really messing me up, guys, is that, again, we had kind of leveled off on this issue and gay people were allowed to get married and do their thing, which is still honestly what the majority of them wanted. They just wanted to be able to conduct their lives and be left alone. And all of this nonsense is literally going to set everybody back. We're going to go, and you already see these conversations. People are saying, well, we gave them gay marriage and now they want our kids, right? Like, that's, but that's unfortunately the result of very stupid activism. Just like all of the racial activism that has just led to, you know, more interest in racist theories about black people, right? None of it's working. None of this is helpful. And, you know, again, it's very hard for me to believe anymore that this is accidental. This did not organically evolve. I mean, sitting in Occupy when it happened, we went from the 99% to suddenly being the, you know, the shattered remnants of a once powerful group because we need to argue over which one of us is higher up on the progressive stack. Well, how do you get there? Well, my opinion, which is still just an opinion, is more important than your opinion because I am black, trans, and gay, you know, and therefore I'm higher up on the stack than you. It's not about equality. It's about an inversion of the perceived hierarchy. They're trying to, in their view, turn everything upside down, you know, and it just destroyed Occupy, and it's still rotting out other groups that allow this sort of nonsense to go on, right? So, you know, it's definitely organized. There's something going on here, and I honestly wish that, well, I mean, it's starting to happen. That's the other thing, guys, is that I do have some hope because there's starting to be pushback, like the push to try to separate the LGB from the T and the Q, for example. That's a real thing. It's starting to happen, but it's going to take more people to have the spine to stand up and say, no more. That's it. We're done. No, you're not canceling me. No, I'm not going to be quiet. And it's not my fault if somebody goes into a gender studies classroom and wants to stab the teacher. Maybe look into where gender studies comes from for a moment. Maybe look into where queer theory comes from for a moment, and then wonder if that might have anything to do with it. Because in all the time that I have ever had any kind of, or I'm sure anybody else has ever had any violent impulses on this topic, it didn't have anything to do with Jordan Peterson tweeting about it. It had everything to do with finding out, wait a minute, gender studies? and queer theory come from pedophiles? You know, that gender studies comes from a guy who committed scientific fraud. His name is John Money. And again, the universities, when you catch them talking about it, they admit that John Money is the reason that those classes even exist. And that guy convinced a couple to raise one of their children as a girl and never tell them that they were a boy, and then lie about it to the kid. And then he lied to the scientific community. That is the basis of where this gender identity ideology bullshit comes from. We're still teaching college courses about that. We're making policies based on that. We're making policies on the work of people like Kinsey, who for some reason has a table, it's table 34, that literally has data on how long it takes 3-month-olds to have orgasms. We're making policies based on that. People can get college educations in that. Really? You know, yeah, and yes, both of those twin boys did eventually take their own lives. So that's why I got to make OK Groomer. And I've just got to pepper people with a nonstop, like, full magazine, auto fire of here's all the images of the things that you claim are not happening. Here's all of the rhetoric surrounding it. Like George Takei lovingly and laughingly sharing with everyone how he was molested at 13 years old at a camp. You can watch that video on my BitChute. In fact, he talked about it 3 separate times, one of which was on the Howard Stern show. And if there was any question about who was talking, it also includes a video of him being like going over in detail on video, describing what happened to him. Right. So somebody is intent on causing more problems. And, and I come back to the same thing that I said earlier, guys. If you were an evil genius and you wanted to, an evil racist and homophobic genius, wouldn't it be cool if you could figure out a way to convince black people that their activism should be centered on resegregating themselves? You should convince black people to once again bring about the stigma against interracial marriage. That if you convince black people to do this for you, right? What if you convinced black people to burn down their own cities to cause more poverty where they live? If you're an evil genius, this is great shit. If you read critical race theory documents yourself, and I advise that you do so, they openly state, no, we should be paying attention to not Martin Luther King, but Malcolm X during the time period of his life when he was a black nationalist, racist, black supremacist. That's the model we need. And critical race theory openly states that it draws from black nationalism and black supremacy. So if you're a real racist and you want to put black people down, then convincing them to go violently burn down their own communities, which causes more poverty, again, that's genius. You don't have to go do the Tulsa Race Massacre. You can just convince them to do it to themselves, right? And then let's say you really hate queer people. Let's say you just despise them and you want to see them dead. Wouldn't it be kind of a cute trick to convince all the queer people to sterilize themselves? Wouldn't that be cute? If you wanted to kill all those people, just convince all of them to sterilize themselves. What kind of a strategy is that? That sounds pretty effective, right? Because that's one of the biggest problems here. And the funny thing is, Jordan Peterson is supposedly labeled like homophobic and all that, is the one who keeps pointing out the study that says if you leave these kids alone, 80% of the time they figure out, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm gay. And then they move on with their lives. Right? But no. If you feel that way now, you're being told that the answer is to sterilize yourself. So I guess Tam is saying that France has their own George Floyd Summer of Love thing going on or whatever. I'll look into that later. It was that Rising thing that really made me feel, nah, I ain't letting this go. I can't believe this bitch is going to turn this around and put the whole thing on Jordan Peterson posting about how jail or the millstone in the deep blue sea. Jordan Peterson wasn't suggesting that you go into a gender studies class and then grab the professor and throw them in the ocean. It's a metaphor. Just like my picture here. Like, do you guys think I really want you to go out and behead Republicans and Democrats? No. But this is a metaphor. I want you to remove the concept of the two major political parties from your head. Those concepts need to go away, because we end up in this situation where we only say, well, no, only the other side is evil so much that the truth is lost. That's why I did this stuff. That's why I do these videos. So like and subscribe and ring the bell. Make sure, if you haven't already, please go to this little website. It's basically like a link tree, but Linktree actually banned me without explanation. Well, their explanation was that apparently it's dangerous. Sorry about that. So this is my HY page. On here, you can find me on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute. It says podcast, but it's because if you go to this link, you'll find me on multiple different podcast platforms like Podbean and Apple Podcasts, etc. They're all linked. And then they're also on Spotify. I have Spotify video like Joe Rogan. This is my Facebook group. And the benefit of joining this is I can add everyone every time I go live. A lot of the reasons that I have these is so that you guys, have other ways to watch me for redundancy, and a lot of people don't get notified when I go live. So, and then obviously this is my Twitter. If you click this is how you find me on Twitter. I'm actually shadowbanned on Twitter, so you're going to have to do this if you want to add me on Twitter. If you want to support me on Patreon, PayPal, and Subscribestar, you can. I'm not actually hurting for money right now, though, so that's not really a big motive right now. I do have a Telegram channel. I just finally got that up and running again, and I post all of my shows there. And I really advise that you join our Discord. Our Discord community is very good. It has both right and left-leaning people in it who have lively debates. The only rule is please don't engage in personal attack. I have a Kick channel. I'm happy that Kick exists, but I would have to literally go in and create a segment every single time I went live on Kick. It's one of the reasons I don't go live on Rumble every time. The other reason I don't go live on Rumble every time is because Rumble does this thing where right now it's uploading all of my stuff from YouTube, which is what I want it to do. But if I go live there too, then there'll be duplicates of everything. And Rumble won't let you delete things half the time. I don't know what the story is. And I do have a little TikTok. Again, the only reason I have a V-Radio TikTok is because I was making shorts, because YouTube said that's what they wanted us to do. But they've never recognized any of my short videos as shorts. So I hate trying to communicate a concept in under a minute anyway. But that's why there's a V-Radio TikTok. So just for the sake of redundancy, folks, make sure that you check me out on these other channels, because again, I mean, you can see it. I cuss. I use violent footage if necessary. I use graphic footage and graphic images because I'm trying to get to the truth. Well, the algorithm doesn't like people like that. So I'm not motivated by money in any way right now, but I am motivated by trying to get the truth out. It helps me do something constructive. So please make sure that you're following me in these other mediums. And, so because even if I do get deleted from YouTube, I'm not stopping. I'll go to these other mediums. So, but I don't want to lose you guys. It's just like I said, I keep thinking about Neo Unrealist got deleted from YouTube, and he has a Rumble and he's still on it, but he's got way less followers on Rumble than he did on YouTube. And that's exactly why they do this kind of crap. So anyway, you guys take care. I really enjoyed streaming for you guys. I mean, I've done a lot of streams this last week or so. So if you really want to help me, don't worry about donating money right now. Just through word of mouth, tell people about my show, link them to it, help me boost the signal. That's how you can help me. That's how you can show your appreciation. So thanks for tuning into V-Radio, folks. I will talk to you all later.